You're listening to the Business Club for Grown-Ups podcast with Jessica Fearnley. So hi there, you're listening to the Business Club for Grown-Ups podcast with me, Jessica Fearnley. And today we're going to be talking about what does a business coach do anyway? Because there can be so much confusion in this area, can't there? And if you work with a business coach, it's really important to understand what they can and can't do for you and your business. I meet a lot of people who aren't entrepreneurs. I like to call them non-entrepreneurs. And they just can look so baffled when I tell them about my work. And it was funny actually, because recently I was in a group of women where one of them was self-employed. So when I explained what I do, 3 of them looked so blank. But the lady who was self-employed said, "Oh wow, yeah, I really need that." Which I thought just captured it brilliantly. Because if you're in the online space or if you're self-employed, then actually sometimes these things are far less mysterious because you know what you're doing in your business. You know the things that you're struggling with. So it's way more obvious what a business coach might be able to help you with. So when I get asked this, usually I start by saying I'm self-employed, and then if people inquire any further, I say I'm a business coach, and they can look quite baffled. And I have to say I find this a little overblown sometimes, because it's not like I've said, oh, I'm a happiness architect or a success guru or some super floofy job title. But have you found this? It's actually the hardest thing to put your own business into words. So when I started off in my business, I used to call myself a business consultant. But then I found that when I met people at networking meetings and that kind of thing, I got called a business coach so much that I just gave in after a while and rebranded as a coach. But I think that's also how my business evolved anyway, because I was quite newly out of corporate when I started my business back in 2015. And I was much more likely to take on a consultant role in someone else's business. And I think at that time, I really did think about mindset as this really beyond the pale type area. Whereas now I've been working with clients for several years, my consulting really has evolved into coaching. And I feel really comfortable with that because I've seen firsthand the huge difference that it does make in people's businesses. So I think I've always had elements of both in the work that I do with my clients. But business coaching can be really baffling to people looking on. And it's funny really, isn't it? Because if you met someone who is a football coach or a basketball coach or a tennis coach, you wouldn't be like, oh man, what a stupid job. Is that even a thing? And it's coaching in a very different context. But let's not get carried away and forget that coaching is actually something we are all familiar with and we do have a category for. So with all of that said, what does a business coach do anyway? I want to dig into this a little bit more because it is really important, and it's worth flagging up that I can't speak for all the coaches out there because there are different styles, different levels of experience, and just some really bad coaches out there, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But here's a summary of what I do with my clients and why it's important. First of all, I want to start by saying, what doesn't a business coach do? Because I think that's really important to clarify right at the beginning. So firstly, a business coach does not wave a magic wand and turn you into a completely different person. Coaching is always about helping you to become the best version of yourself. And this isn't a case of turning someone into a carbon copy of me or a carbon copy of Marie Forleo or anyone else for that matter. We all have different strengths and development areas, and your personal brand just will not work if you're trying to copy someone else. It really just impacts as inauthentic. But also you miss out on so much if you're just trying to mimic someone else instead of digging into the things that really make you unique, because these are the things that make you stand out among the crowd. So a business coach cannot turn you into a different person. They also can't magically remove the need for you to work on your business or grow your own network or your own audience. You will need to work really hard to make your business a success, and you will need personal contacts. I've seen big brand coaches who promote their proteges' businesses, but it always makes me feel a bit blah when that kind of thing happens, because a good coach should always empower their client to step into their own space and create their own audience, not just rinse and repeat every step they took and rely on favours or leg ups to get somewhere. It should never be about that coach looking to make a carbon copy of themselves. But we see so much of that in the online space. I'll show you the exact steps I took to whatever, or you can build the exact business that I did. You can't, and that should never be the goal. Be you. Build your business, build your brand. You can't take a shortcut to that, and honestly, most of the time these big promises that people make fall flat and do not deliver. So save yourself some time and a lot of money, and don't work with coaches who promise results that exactly match theirs. In that vein, A business coach cannot reveal the hidden secret that will unlock overnight business success and make you Instagram famous. And this is just such a misleading narrative that we can all see around us online. A business coach might suggest a strategy and even support you to carry it out, but it's the job of the client to do the work. So I often say to clients, I am with you every step of the way, but you have to want to do this because I will not be building your business for you. As a coach, if you're having to coerce clients to take action or put pressure on them to do their homework, the battle is already lost. The right clients are ready and will get it done. And I had a client last year who I'm still in contact with, and she was just fantastic. Within 24 hours of a session, she would have done literally everything we'd discussed, and often on a so much bigger scale than we talked about. And that was a perfect example of how the dynamics should work. A good coach gets their client match fit and ready to get out there and take big action to achieve the goals the client has committed to. So that leads us on nicely to, what does a business coach do? A business coach works with their client to enable them to make change. That might involve teaching them techniques they don't already know. It might involve helping them come up with a plan of action. Or it might be a case of giving them a pep talk or pointing out that they're veering off target. One thing I've found often comes up with clients is when they've been really focused on achieving a certain goal, but then instead of completing it, they announce a rebrand or a new website colour scheme or a completely different course or programme or offer. And that's always a bit of a fun one, because it is a case of saying, because I know you, I know what your tendency is in this situation, and I think there's a reason why you haven't mentioned the goal we actually agreed you'd be working on. How does that land with you? Business coaches should ask questions more than switch on the monologue. A good coach will get the client doing most of the talking, because so often the client isn't struggling with knowing what to do. They're lacking the courage or the confidence to actually take those steps, and that's something that I've seen with at least 2 of my clients this year. A good coach has a broad range of tools and techniques and experience to draw on to help the client. But it can be a real challenge for coaches not to get so wrapped up in their coaching models and diagrams that they lack connection with the client's situation. So, when you're talking about a scenario with a coach and they get all excited and give you a weird picture of a pie chart with loads of lines through it, and it can just be like, what is that? So it's important for a coach not to get too coachy. And I think that is more common in the corporate space because of corporate culture and the need to prove that you're qualified and you know your eggs in front of a corporate audience who might be a little cynical and maybe a bit dismissive. But I think often we see the opposite at work in the online space, where we can use the term coach very flippantly, and what we mean is someone who will teach their client the exact skill set they themselves have. And the problem we can then run into is that they really only know one way of doing things. Or even worse, you get the person who's like, oh, hey, I really want an online business, but I don't really know what I can offer as a service. So they just decide to brand themselves as a business coach because it sounds generic and fairly safe. And if you've heard my podcast before, you'll know that that kind of logic just makes my hair stand on end, because it is so insane to work with someone in their 20s or 30s or 40s for that matter, who doesn't know anything about business except for what they just learned on the expensive How to Set Up an Online Business course they just finished 5 minutes ago. That is not business coaching. I can't decide sometimes if I think it's hilarious or just outrageous that this kind of thing can actually happen. But in my own business, because my career background is project management and business development, and I've done both of these things in a variety of contexts, so charitable, private sector, public sector, large organisations, tiny organisations, a startup business, and since then a lot of small businesses and solopreneurs, I've seen a lot of different businesses, and for me, one of the most important things is that no business is the same. For me, retaining that sense of the individual in their business and not just saying, okay, so you'll want to do step A and then step B and then step C. The most important thing is to work with the individual client and their context, not try to imprint a generic narrative onto them, and especially not just treat them as a mini-me and push them down the path that you've taken. For my clients as well, a really important thing is that it is all about the financials, and it always surprises me that so many coaches don't look at or talk about the figures because, and maybe it's my corporate background with this, but for me that is just the most important metric of how the business is actually doing. It's not the only thing, and in terms of setting those priorities, I will always build in the things that are important to the client, whether it's profit, quality of life, those kinds of things. but I honestly don't see how you can add value to a business without acknowledging the profit margins and specific figures when it comes to turnover and business costs. It's a factual measure of how things are going, and it's so much more helpful to me as their coach than how the client feels at any particular session. I've had clients, and you know who you are, I'm sure they'll be laughing to hear me say this, but I've had clients who come to a session and they're all discouraged and tell me how everything is going so badly. But then we look at the financials and I'm like, hello, did you even see this? And it can really shift their mood in a big way, because that's the role that mindset plays. We have a fixed narrative about ourselves and about our businesses that can be really hard to change. So things go well, and we actually have a really hard time dealing with that, because on some level it isn't the way things are supposed to be. I've often said, actually, that in my own business, I've probably cried more when things are going well than when they're going badly, because when things feel hard, I have a category for that. But then when they're going well, that used to really overwhelm me. And we sometimes need help coping with the fact that successful businesses change us, and not always in the way that we expect. So like, wow, there's money coming in. That can actually cause more overwhelm, especially if it happens quickly and we're just not prepared to deal with it. And an interesting thing about coaching is that with several of my clients, I found that they might present saying, oh, I don't know what to do. And that just is not the case a lot of the time. They might know exactly what to do, but they don't yet believe that that could be an attainable outcome or course of action for them. And during the course of our working together, I've often set out with them, right at the very beginning, that there are a couple of objectives I really think they should think about, but they've not been ready to put that into action. I've got 2 clients I'm particularly thinking of with this one, and both of them have had really big breakthroughs this year, because it's like a light is just switched on, and it's been really amazing to witness because of the difference that it makes. That difference is huge. And then they'll suddenly say, oh, and I had this amazing idea, and guess what the idea is? It's the thing we talked about right at the beginning that they weren't ready for yet. But now they are ready, and they're doing it without even trying. So often as the coach, you might have an overarching theme of where they're heading that they can't see yet or they can't hold on to. But your job is to hold tight to that vision for them, because they will do the work to get there. You can't do that for them, but you're helping them to take that next step. And you're helping them not to get off track either. And at this point, I want to return for a minute to what a business coach doesn't do, because I think it's really important that you don't work with someone who needs you to be in a position of fear or vulnerability in order to work with them. I see this a lot, and I've experienced it. And it really opened my eyes to how possible it is to manipulate your clients and prey upon the vulnerable. So it's really important. A coach should make you more independent and more able to function without them. It shouldn't be their game plan to insert themselves into your business and stay there for the long term. And I have to say, I do have clients on board at the moment who I've worked with for 12 to 18 months. And it's great because we're able to do a deeper level of work, and I can really call them on things because they trust me and the relationship is there. But I have to check in with myself that I'm not moving to a coaching model where I'm a permanent fixture in their business. Good coaches do not make you dependent on them. They empower you to become a better version of yourself who is able to stand on your own 2 feet. Because for the client, it's never in their best interest to be dependent on you. You need to be able to allow a client to retain that ability to make their own decisions. So if someone is incapable of doing anything in their business without asking me first, and equally, if I find myself asking the people I'm working with for permission to do anything and everything, that really is a red flag that actually the issue at play is confidence, not the actual issue that they're presenting with. But it is a challenge. There's a lot of emphasis in the online space about quick results and building a 6-figure business in 30 days and all that kind of nonsense. And I have to say that now I've been coaching for a while, I just don't have much time for clients who want the results without the work, because my best results have been with clients where there was a proper commitment to meeting at least once a month for a decent period of time. Sometimes the results do come up quickly, but stable growth in a business that is sustainable almost always needs to be built up over the long term. So all of that can sound a little theoretical, and I want to be really specific. After all, remember those SMART goals, that's what I'm all about. So ultimately, when I work with my clients, I'm looking to achieve 3 goals. Firstly, help them get more time freedom. So working fewer hours, because overwork is one of the major things that brings people to work with me. And I get it because I've been through burnout myself, and I know that scary feeling of just being overwhelmed by the burdens that your work puts on you, but at the same time feeling totally powerless to do anything about it. We are never powerless, we always have a choice, but it sometimes doesn't feel like that. So that's a really key thing that I help my clients with. Secondly, I help them make more money from their business, because it's just the most soul-destroying thing when you're not making the money you need to, and it just isn't sustainable for the long term. From a business point of view, in a viable business, that's easy to fix because it's the primary function of a business. If you aren't bringing in any money, what on earth are you doing with your time and energy? There's often a number of reasons a business isn't making enough money, and as a coach you can be quite clinical about diagnosing the issue. The most common are you're not charging enough, or people don't want the product you're selling, or your audience don't know you're there. And thirdly, I help them find clients who are the perfect fit for their business, because working with the wrong clients is such a huge frustration in a business. When you work with people who aren't the right fit, there are all kinds of problems with complaints or cancellations, disputes over invoices, non-payment of invoices, quibbles and negotiations over pricing. It's just a world away from working with people who get the value of your services and pay on time and give you brilliant testimonials. The difference that it makes to the business is huge, but also the difference that it makes to morale is huge. So those are the 3 things I look to do for my clients, and the most common reason people approach me for help actually, usually there's at least one at play, sometimes all 3, but it's more time freedom, more money, better clients. So is relationship important when it comes to working with a business coach? I've been asked this a few times recently actually, and basically yes. Until the client trusts you, it's not really possible to coach them. And I've had clients who are resistant to the coaching process. And you can't do coaching to someone unless they're with you and fully on board. You can't get the results for them because they have to be fully ready to do it. And someone asked me recently, should I work with a coach I don't like in order to get the results they're promising? And I guess I'd say it depends why you don't like them, but basically, no, you should not work with them if you don't like them, because it's like dating. If you meet someone who doesn't respect you when you're not in a relationship with them, that won't change if you decide to get married. Coaching is interpersonal. It matters whether you get on, especially if you're an introvert or an anxious personality. I'm both of those things, and personally, I hate being told I'm overthinking or overreacting to something, even if that's true, and I am. If your personalities are at odds, you won't get on, you won't trust them, you won't do the work with them. And I think fundamentally, a coach needs to respect you as their client. There need to be professional boundaries in place, and if there's discord or tension in that relationship, which can sometimes happen, coaching is interpersonal, so this all has an impact. If there's discord in the relationship, then it always has an impact on the result. So here are some silly reasons to work with a business coach. I think firstly, you want your business to become super successful overnight and you think it's a shortcut to the end result. And it's just so easy to believe this because people selling online courses and expensive coaching packages can be so good at positioning their services to make them feel irresistible. But remember what I said right at the beginning, a coach cannot change you into a different person. Developing a brand and a stable business just does not happen overnight, and you can't throw money at it to make it any different. You need to learn the lessons that are ahead of you because it's all part of the journey. I think secondly, you feel like you're missing the secret sauce, that one thing, and you're just desperate to find it. Okay, so truth bomb time. There is no secret sauce. The people who say there is are lying. Businesses take work and skill and a whole host of components engineered in the right way. It takes time. I've had a consistent monthly income in my business for the last 2 years, and it started out as a really small income. But that's okay. It's not a competition to climb the mountain faster than everyone else. It's about taking the next step, putting in place the things that will bring income into your business, controlling your costs and maximising your profit. So don't get distracted by all this talk about the secret sauce. You're not doing anything wrong a lot of the time. You just need to be more patient. I think if you just really need some money coming into your business and you're so desperate you'll do anything, I see this a lot, and unfortunately it is what some coaches prey upon. They know that you're panicking and they use that as leverage for ridiculously expensive coaching services. I have to say, I think that's coaching at its absolute worst, and it's not even really coaching at all. It just feels like taking advantage of people's vulnerability. So it's really important to check in with yourself and say, do I want to work with this person because I believe on some level that they will help me to fast track to the results that I really want? Always ask yourself, what if I invest the money and I don't get the results I'm looking for? And the final silly reason I have for working with a business coach is that everyone else is working with a coach, so you feel like you need to as well. And it comes back to this fear of missing out, doesn't it? I hope I don't have to tell you how ridiculous this is. It's not a box that you tick. Coaching is a personal thing, and some personalities may actually find they don't need a coach. For a long time in my business, I didn't really want one. I got some really good support and advice when I started out. But after a while, I just got impatient. I wanted to forge my own path and use my judgment instead of following all the stupid rules about how to write a marketing email. And I'm a business coach, so I was like, for goodness sake, I can do this. So don't let it be something that you rush into because you just think, oh, everyone else is doing it, I have to do it too. So having said all of that, what are good reasons for working with a business coach? I think if you're at a point where you just know you're not making forward progress and you're so tired of carrying that burden alone, that's a great reason to work with a business coach. A good coach will be able to diagnose the problem in your business that you probably can't see yourself, and they'll work with you to find the solution. I think as well, if you know there are real gaps in your knowledge and you're willing to invest in your own learning and development and actually put things into action, because if you think about shiny object syndrome, so, buying a load of courses you never even finish or probably even never start, the issue with that isn't the course itself, it's that you spent the money for the result, but you never showed up to put the work in. Working with the right coach when you're in a real slump, who helps you get re-energized, helps you find that best version of yourself, that is the whole process right there. You do the work, but they facilitate you getting to a point, whether that's mindset or something else, where you are ready to get to work. There's something in there too that I think is really important about accepting that you have a road to travel and lessons to learn along the way, but wanting help from a business coach to minimise the impact of those mistakes instead of trying to bypass them altogether. So often people want a quick fix or a get-rich-quick plan. I can't help them with that, but what I can do is partner with them and give them advice that gives them the benefit of my experience, both in my own business and from my career experience, which is just a huge way to bring strength to that business. Sometimes it's right to do a stretch in your business without a coach, because you might need to work on your independence, or your decision-making skills, or your leadership abilities. And it would actually be better for you not to be dependent on a coach through that season. But it is such a helpful thing to have a safe person to bounce ideas off and be supported through that process, so you don't just go from dead end to dead end. Another reason that I think is a great one to work with a coach is when you know your goals really clearly, but you want someone to keep you accountable and help you problem solve along the way. Because if you've been in business for any amount of time, you will just know that things that seem so simple are never actually straightforward. I wanted to do an online course a year or two ago, and I was like, it will be so simple. I'll create my course and I'll sell it. Boom. Both of those components are actually made up of 104 steps in of themselves. It is not a quick thing to do, and the same is true for some of my clients. They need someone to keep them on track for the overarching goals they've set for their business, and they're open to advice on the journey about how to optimize their profits or improve their working practices or their team dynamic or whatever might be at play. But a client should never hand you responsibility for their business. It's not like you can just opt out of building your business because you have a business coach. If they're the right business coach, it will always be a collaborative process and they will not assume control of the business. A really great reason to work with a coach is that you see the value of adding them to your team. We all have strengths and development areas, and sometimes a coach just has a skill set that you do not have, but it would bring your business so much benefit to have them in your corner. One of the biggest surprises to me in starting my business was that my own CPD, so that's continuous professional development, would be my biggest investment area, because actually running a business, even as a solopreneur, is all about leadership. If people look to you as someone who can help them, you need to be worthy of their respect and the confidence that they're putting in you. So understanding your character better and your tendencies and the behaviours that come out when you're under pressure and managing those so that you're able to deliver the goods. I had no idea when I started my business that was even a thing. But investing in getting help so you can be the best version of yourself and show up as that best version of yourself in your business, come rain or shine, that is worth its weight in gold. So wow, isn't this a great topic? I feel like I'm just getting started. I could honestly talk about this all night. It's something I'm so passionate about because I just can't bear it when I see coaching done badly. I've always felt that you shouldn't become a business coach because you want an online business and you don't have a particular specialty, so it's just this generic term. That is not how I came to be an online business coach. So I guess the key thing I want to leave you with is that coaching isn't this vague, imprecise thing that can't be quantified. It's actually very involved, and when it's done well, it has huge results for the client. And because it's interpersonal, it goes in both directions. Either the coach or the client can disrupt that process. But I love being a coach. I love the work that I do and seeing the impact it can have with my clients. And I actually got a testimonial from one of my clients last week that I'm going to share with you now because it just meant so much to see it in writing. She said, Jessica is one of the few true business coaches in the world of online coaches because she has actual real-life business experience which she puts to work in her coaching. That was such a great testimonial to receive because that is exactly what I bring to the table when I work with my clients. So this will almost definitely be a topic we return to another time because there is just so much more to say. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Business Club for Grown-Ups podcast with Jessica Fearnley. To find out more, visit thebusinessclubforgrownups.com.